Hello, everyone. Welcome to the slightly smaller ComicBase Livestream. Yeah, I actually was setting up it's called the Super Source on my console right before the show there, and I had to downsize my picture in order to make room for the clips I wanted to play during the show here. So you can tell it's an absolutely professional production, as you've come to expect. But for the next bit, we will be talking about comic-based stuff, some tech stuff that's going on, free comic book day wrap up, an update on some very cool AI tools I wasn't able to show earlier, and something I think is kind of fun. So we're going to see how we can fit that in, and if I'm smart, I won't get into too much weird territory. We try to save the weird territory for our Comic Base After Dark show, which is sort of our speakeasy one. Think of this one as the happy, newsy, nothing controversial, a little bit PR flacky for Comic Base show. We try to keep it informative, but we also, we try to stay in our lane, as they say. We also have a companion show that we do about once a month, and we're overdue for one. And it's one where you guys get to be part of the show. It's called Comic Base After Dark. I'm hoping to do one in a little over a week. I'm going to be going to Florida for the weekend finally. And afterwards, I'd like to do one maybe next Thursday or Friday. But I will firm that up, and I'll get back to folks. If you'd like to be part of that, by the way, please send me a note at pbickford@human-computing.com and just say Comic Base After Dark, and we'll shoot you an invite. It's one where we just kind of let our hair down and talk like a bunch of guys hanging out at the local comic shop, and grab an alcoholic beverage or two or three, and just have fun. Anyway, so that's coming up. Like I say, I'm hoping in the next week, maybe two, on that one. But in the meantime, this show only have a little bit of comic-based news to get through. There is a new set of Blu-ray images. They're up for download if you are so inclined. If you have the Comic-Base 4K Archive Edition, we refresh the discs on this one periodically, and the discs have just been periodically refreshed. It takes like a week to do the compression involved with this, which is why we don't do it every other day. But all 1,043,000 images are all available for download on the two Blu-ray disc images, if you like. That said, I strongly actually suggest to people these days, and it's what I do myself, is don't actually download the disc images unless you have some very special reason to, or you dodgy internet or something. The best way to go, really, for almost all people, is download the quick start images, which is the relatively quick to download smallish versions of all the imagery. Those ones, instead of taking 50 gigs or whatever else to download, those ones fit in about 9 gigs for the whole set of everything. And through the magic of the internet, the second you interact with anything that you've downloaded a quick start image for, it will automatically download the full res version in real time. So it takes some fraction of a second. It's to do for most people. It's unmeasurable on most people's internet connections. And when you do that, the picture you get is actually a much nicer version that we could squish onto the discs because we're not limited by that. And you also don't blow away all your disk space because you haven't downloaded a million high-res disk images of something that you will probably never look at. I mean, name the obscure comic book, from India or Brazil or something else that we may have the image for, but you may never ever get around to looking at it because that's the number of pictures that we're dealing with in Comic Base these days. So, but anyway, if you are of a mind to, we have refreshed both sets of images, both the quick start and the Blu-ray images. So those are now available. We will be opening up the dev phase testing for our next version of Comic Base very shortly. I plan to do it a little earlier, but there was a bit more foundational work that we need to do to get the new version rolling just for us internally, the core dev team, just to make everything work smoothly for us. So we wanted to work out that stuff before we invite everyone else behind the walls that is of interest to. But if you'd like to be part of the developmental texting group, or whatever we're going to call it, basically what we do is we invite you onto the company Slack. We give you access to pre-release builds. The only thing you've got to do then is you basically get to see all the traffic going forth between early round and dev team testing and everything else like that. The only thing we ask is that you be an active member and install new builds as they go, and let us know what you think, what's working well, what's not working, and so forth. And if you're interested in being part of that and you haven't been in previous years, please send me again a note, pbickford@human-computing.com, and just mention dev testing, and I will send you an invite to be part of that one. We'll be kicking that one off, I'm thinking, in about 2 weeks for the outside folks. We've been building on the new version for a while, but like I say, there's some stuff we need to get done ourselves before it was ready to even show to anyone outside the core team. And then the last major thing that's going on is we are working on a new version of the ComicBase mobile app. This is one that unfortunately we're having to outsource because it's getting very complicated from a technical standpoint to manage all the different platforms involved. If you guys are into this sort of thing, Microsoft was using a platform. They bought a company that put out a product called Xamarin, which allowed you to write one version of the code base, which would then run on Apple devices, iPads, iPhones, Android devices of all shapes and sizes and so forth, and you could manage it with one code base, which made the whole thing plausible to do without having just a squad of developers, keeping all the versions up to date. Microsoft bought that a number of years ago, and we thought, oh, great news, it'll be super well supported, except corporate politics being what they are, they did super well support it. And then they also decided, oh, well, let's also change up the architecture enough so that, we feel like we've been part of the process. And so, yes, they've been driving things forward, but they're also adding on a lot of new learning curve. And in order for us to get some of the newer things to work properly, it's like, oh, yay, another platform for us to learn. And that's one we're going to have to go outside for, because there's just not enough hours in the day to get that all working. But that is in the works. I've been writing specs on that one for a while now, and we hope to have a new version of that one up in a couple of months. There will be a full refresh for both iOS devices, your iPhones and your iPads and so forth, as well as Android. The core thing that we really, really need to get working, which is it's just broke in the current version, is the new iPhone Pro versions have an extra camera they threw in that is not playing well with the barcode scanning function. Basically, they have a new macro camera where in order for it to switch to that camera, on the new iPhones, you have to pull the camera far enough away from it in order for it to say, I'm not going to use the one camera, I'm going to use the regular cameras, the one our barcode library is expecting. And as a result, then the barcode becomes too small to scan on those devices, which is very vexing. And unfortunately, there is no fix with the current barcode scanning library. So in order to get to the new version of the barcode scanning library, we also need to switch tech platforms. So yeah, just imagine me with less hair, because I pulled it all out. And that was what made the decision that, yes, we're going back to a third-party developer on that one in order to get that done. But that is coming. So I welcome your feedback on that as we get around to showing that one around. All right, and I already covered the ComicBase After Dark thing. We've been homing, I don't know what you call it, fostering a second Bernese Mountain Dog, which, if you know those breeds, they're lovely. They're big floppy goofballs, and two of them is a lot of work. So this one we've been fostering is finally going to his I hate to say forever home, because it sounds like it's like they're going to put him down, but no, he's actually being fully adopted by a veteran working out of Savannah, Georgia, and we look forward to welcoming him to his new home, which also means we'll be down to just the one dog, and I can get some sleep. So I'm gonna go hit the beach in Florida for a weekend and just take it easy, and I'm going to worry about a lot of stuff when I get back. Anyway, with all that stuff said, let me say hi to folks here. Thank you all for coming, by the way. Richard Scott's first in the door is "Hold My Beer," which I think that's the state slogan of Tennessee. Anyway, Mike Beams saying hi from Vancouver, Washington. Our mod is in the house, Mr. Gregory Hecht from out in New Jersey. It looks like it's getting hot and muggy everywhere. And I'm sure we're also enjoying the fabulous bug of the summer, which is the cicada. I don't know what your area of the country is like, but mine is absolutely swarming in them, and it's getting downright creepy going under the trees when you mow your lawn, because it's yeah, they're everywhere, and man, are they loud. Um, anyway, I think is anyone else? Let's say, oh hey, Ed's in the house. Comparing notes on comic books that are coming. Xanadu Comics here from sunny Seattle. Brian Price is in from Dallas. Oh, hot and sunny indeed. And indeed, and it's a new version of the ComicBase app. Yay, yeah, I feel you. So we hope to make it a good one. So, all right. So I got some little bit of tech news that just struck me as worth passing on, and then I'm going to be getting onto comic book, a free comic book day wrap up, and then some new stuff about AI and a recommendation for your entertainment needs. And then that's the show. So hopefully, we may be out of here shortly. We'll see. But first of all, as you guys have probably known, Windows is getting a little bit aggressive, let's call it, about really shoving the ads down your throat. And Windows 11 is adding new ads right into the start menu. They've got them on the lock screen, before you've even logged onto your computer. They've got ways of making you, sad that you have a computer and doing that. Anyway, for what it's worth, I want to recommend a little utility, which is really kind of neat. Look for a thing called OFGB, which I think basically stands for "Oh frickin' get back." But it's basically just a little simple control panel, and you can find a link to that if you go to PC World. It's right on the main one. But it's an open source project which they've got there, which basically lets you just turn off the places you don't want to see ads in Windows. Which, if you're anything like me, is everywhere. I never want to see ads in Windows because that's not what I bought my computer for. So anyway, I'm going to say I've tried that out. Works like a charm. Absolutely nothing to it, and works great. So anyone who is not looking forward to the coming addening of the Windows environment, feel free to check this one out. It's a free download. I believe it's open sourced off of GitHub. So if you want to read the source code, you can even do that. And it just magically it hits all the appropriate registry entries to turn things on and off and control it as you will. So you can get your own computer back with. So I'm going to say I highly recommend that. All right. So with that said, this last Saturday was, Free Comic Book Day. There were 48 comic books that were part of the entire thing, and it was a good time. I checked things out at the local scene out here in Nashville. There are, there's one less major comic book store in the area than there were. Honestly, it doesn't feel like we're doing as much with it as we have in days past. I believe the high point of Free Comic Book Day was a total of 60 special purpose comic books issued just for the date. Still pretty healthy as these things go, but it is a little diminished. For me, my impression, just looking at things from around the country, is just the entire event is just a little bit more toned down than it was. Free Comic Books Day started out in 2002. It was the brainchild of Joe Field from Flying Colors Comics out in Concord, California. That's back in the Bay Area where we used to all be. And matter of fact, I've got a video clip on this one, and I'm just going to let the video clip tell the rest.
Free Comic Book Day around the world, an annual event that began right here in the Bay Area.
But the man who started it says the story of his beloved shop is evolving right along with the characters that fill its shelves. John Ramos has the story.
Yeah. It's cold and wet in Concord, but hundreds of people have lined up outside for Free Comic Book Day at the place that started it all. And while it may be the end of an era, the owner says it's also the start of something new.
All right, let's get this line moving. Happy Free Comic Book Day, everyone. Yeah.
When Joe Field opened his Flying Colors comic book shop in Concord in 1987, the long line wasn't in front of his store.
And nobody was coming into my shop. They were all going next door to Baskin-Robbins for a free scoop night. I thought, come on, the only thing cooler than ice cream is comics.
So in 2001, he wrote to the publishing industry suggesting a comic book giveaway day to bring new customers into the stores. And boy, did it work. Now, just like in Concord, more than 1 million people arrive at stores worldwide to get special edition comics produced just for the event.
And we've been helped by all these big budget movies and TV shows and whatnot. But honestly, we always tell people, as good as the stories are on the big screen, nothing compares to the great stories that have been told in the comics.
And while the characters never seem to age, the fan base has. Field says his clientele now averages in their 40s. Ron Pond was the first in line to select his 5 free issues.
For me, I mean, I read comic books since I was a kid, so it's really just the joy of the stories and everything else.
Heidi Madeira was drawn as a young girl to Josie and the Pussycats, a rock group that solved mysteries in their spare time.
They were an empowered all-girl group that were going on really cool adventures, and they got to travel, and so everything that I wanted to be growing up.
But just like the superheroes, the shop itself is battling adversity. Flying Colors is losing its lease in favor of a bagel shop, making this the last free comic book day here. It's hard to imagine this could be happening at a place so special it drew a personal visit in 2013 by the originator of the Marvel Universe, the late Stan Lee.
I remember when he opened the shop, and I felt very sentimental about coming again.
This day was sentimental as well, and seeing the crowds inside and out was bittersweet for Joe.
Oh, it's kind of surreal today.
Is it emotional?
Yeah. These are my people.
The Flying Colors story will continue, as will Free Comic Book Day, just at a new, as yet undisclosed location. And Joe has little doubt that his customers will follow him. But it's always hard to see a good story end, even when you know another one is on the way.
The first Free Comic Book Day was held in 2002 to coincide with the release of the first Spider-Man movie. Since then, the annual event has been used to cross-promote the release of other superhero films in the summer.
All right, so that is the story of Free Comic Book Day. Unfortunately, it's also the story of Flying Colors. Joe ran a hell of a shop, and I don't know anyone in the industry who does what he does better. And so, I mean, these are clearly not great times for comic book stores. A couple of things that were actually really interesting about the clip, if you were watching that one really closely. One is Joe's, if you look at his product mix, I mean, first of all, his store is what you would exactly love. It's a well-organized, clean, well-lighted place for comic books. It's not a sketchy dive thing. It's not, a half flea market. It's like a quality comic book store. He did a lot of where his rack placement was. If you want, even right in the front door, you barely even cross the threshold before he's got leaders in for the new generation with displays of like Dog Boy, which is the great controversial crossover. Excuse me. Between the world of books and young fiction and comic books, and really very much sort of the leader product that we're really kind of losing in the comic market. But anyway, Joe's running a great thing. It's disheartening to me that he's losing his lease space to a bagel shop. But I wish Joe all the best. If anyone can, find a way to make that whole thing work, it's going to be him. But yeah, and I really don't want to get too dark on the whole thing. But clearly, comics have had a bad year. We've discussed it before. We, in ComicBase After Dark, we've certainly gotten into it in a little bit more detail. But one thing that's very vexing about the current comic book industry is there's a lot. Going back 10 years or so, it used to be that there was basically one distributor in town, and that distributor, Diamond Comics, would release their figures. In other words, you knew how things were selling, really. Nowadays, there's a lot. It's basically impossible to find solid figures on the comic market anymore. We're measuring a lot different things than we were about what constitutes a comic book. So, for instance, depending on who you're asking, those Dog Boy books could, are probably the number one selling comic book on the planet, or in years before that, we wouldn't have even called them a comic book. We would have said, well, that's just, scholastic. That's young fiction. But they're currently being measured in with that. There's no universal source of truth on anything, and all the players, it's really in their interest as it is to kind of hide the ball. To not say, I mean, they'll say, well, here's our number one selling thing, and and we are moving 60% more of this than we were last time, but they'll never tell you the baseline, and they'll never compare what their market share is versus everybody else. You have some very, very incomplete numbering off of, I'd call it a popular point of sale system, except it's installed in a handful of places, called Comic Hub. And you can try to aggregate sales from that, from which you probably have enough data points to say what are the more popular titles. Excuse me, just a moment, guys. Sorry about that. I'm going to crack open a crusher and try to wet my whistle here. Excuse me. Apologies. But anyway, so you probably have enough data to say what titles are more popular than other titles. The thing you're missing, though, is what are the sales period for mainline comic books. And, like I say, the numbers that I'm seeing reported by places like ICV2 are they're just sketch as hell. I'm just going to say it. And clearly there's a real difference of what they have been measuring versus what they've been measuring in times past. Even by their very sunny outlook on the industry, however, they're basically reporting about 20% drop over their big year. So what I see just on the streets, though, is a lot more comic retailers of actual comic stores, things where the primary product is comic books, are just having a hell of a time making it. And that's not a great thing. With that said, it can get better, and it really can. It's I have a number. It's funny. There was a very long talk I had with someone recently about, like, if I were in charge of the universe, how I would restructure, Warner Brothers Discovery's comic publishing and Disney Publications comic publishing. There is an answer. Or at least there is, I think, a decent path forward to make comic books quite a bit more profitable than they currently are. Because I think in times especially like this, the thirst for story is just off the charts. We, on one hand, have never been so eager to escape into a fantastic world of fiction and fantasy, and frankly, we've got the money and the means to do it, but we need to be given the product, and you need to put it in front of people in a way that they can, get to. The characters are clearly valuable, and that's one thing that just absolutely perplexes me to the nth degree. Is you've got Marvel sitting and DC sitting on some of the most valuable intellectual property in the known universe. I mean, it's and it feels like they're wasting the opportunity where it comes to the graphic stories that gave them their home, and really were the basis for what they're doing. By point of reference, the Spider-Man 2 video game that Sony released last year sold 2.5 million copies its first day. In one day. And this is I believe a $60 game. I mean, absolutely staggering amounts of love for the character, that people want to spend 50 to 100 hours being that character. And damned if there isn't a way to tell stories involving that character that don't elicit their enthusiasm. So, I mean, the same thing goes for, think about the entire suite of mainline Marvel and DC, superheroes and so forth. They've had a bad run of movies lately, but it seems like there's a pretty good a way to get around that. It really is a difference in focus, in difference in accountability, and honestly, you really need to get the editorial into. You really need to get them in gear. I'm trying to find polite ways of saying what I said in a long conversation with somebody else, but probably have thoughts on this if you guys are interested in getting into it on the ComicBase After Dark. But in the meantime, unless your name is Bob Iger or David Zaslav, I'm going to spare you my thoughts on how to fix your company's woes and focus on how to be the best comic base I know how to be, and kind of, worry about things a little closer to home on that end. But like I say, potentially a topic for CBAD if you're interested. All right, let's move on though. There's a speaking of the ability to tell stories and some new toys for playing with this. We talked a while back about a technology called EMO, is emotive picture. Except for whatever reasons, we could not get the video to work with sound, which of course is the entire point of the whole thing. What EMO is and the amount of new absolutely jaw-dropping work that's happening in AI is just astounding right now, and it's coming from all quarters. EMO was it's basically a lip syncing sort of thing where if you feed it an audio file and you feed it a single still picture of something, it can essentially animate that picture incredibly accurately and convincingly to play with the audio file that's involved. It really just brings these things to life in a way that it's stunning, and the idea of the source is that it's just an audio clip and a single picture. And the people who are doing this, it's not from Google, it's not from Amazon, it's not from Meta or any of the people you'd expect, not from OpenAI. It's from Alibaba, as in the marketplace from China. These are the guys who are pushing this one right now. Basically started as a technical paper. It hasn't been released for commercial use right now, but the demos are off the damn charts. So let me show you a couple of the demos and you'll know what I'm talking about.
When I was a kid, I feel like you heard the term, don't cry.
Okay, let me back this one up for a second and explain what the heck we're seeing. Let me also switch the viewer here to the super source so I can talk over the picture. So what you've got on the left here is just a single frame of Kate Hepburn. And they fed an audio file of just an interview clip. And watch the lips, watch the eyes, watch the expression. I mean, it knows to blink, for God's sake. It's incredibly convincing. Let me go ahead and play and cue this again.
You don't need to cry. Crying is the most beautiful thing you can do. I encourage people to cry. I cry all the time, and I think it's the most healthy expression of how you're feeling. And I sometimes wish I just could have been told, you can cry. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in how you're feeling. And also, you don't need to always be justifying it.
So, I mean, damned if that doesn't look like archival footage, to me. And the creating of it is literally, it's as simple as a video clip and a single picture. To show you that you could do it with pretty much any picture, here is a rendering of the Mona Lisa and a clip from Miley Cyrus.
We were good, we were gold. Can the dream that can be so? We were right till we weren't. Build a home that was deeper.
Now, along with everything else, I mean, watch how the facial inflection as she goes towards higher notes and things like that. It changes up. Her eyes will close and she'll there's like breath intakes and things like that. It's all there and it all looks really convincing.
I didn't want to leave, I didn't want to lie. Started to cry, but then remembered I can buy myself flowers, write my name in the sand.
I mean, these quirky little eye moves that she's got going on there, absolutely astonishing. I'm going to try another one in the same idea of things. This one is I'm going to play the next two. It's different kinds of source material and different images and everything, and I'm going to talk about them after. Right now I'm just going to play them.
You have done nothing but tell me how bored you were. I was the chore, the job you didn't want to do. To me, you were everything.
Dress up as Mary Todd Lincoln and help me win this presidency, or you can pack your things and leave. There's the door.
Oh my God, I love your skirt. Where did you get it? Vintage. So adorable. Oh my God, I love your skirt. Where did you get it? Vintage. So adorable.
So what they're doing there is they took 3 radically different speakers, different cultures, the whole 9 yards, and the even the amount of exaggeration that they put into the face is essentially culturally appropriate for the kinds of speakers that they were using there. I'm gonna play one more here.
You want to know how I got these scars? My father was a drinker and a fiend. And one night, he goes off crazier than usual. Mommy gets the kitchen knife to defend herself. He doesn't like that. Not one bit. So, me watching, he takes the knife to her, laughing while he does it. He turns to me and he says, "Why so serious?" He comes at me with the knife. "Why so serious?" He sticks the blade in my mouth. "Let's put a smile on that face." And why so serious?
Absolutely unbelievable. So the thing that messes with your head, when you're watching that one is, on one hand, you're staring at Joaquin Phoenix from Joker, who was emphatically not the actor for The Dark Knight, which is what that clip is from. That was, God, I'm sorry, completely blanking. Heath Ledger. The entire performance is so convincing. I had to just remind myself I'm actually watching a fake movie right now, because everything about it worked. So that is EMO, which I guess is the way you're supposed to say it, as opposed to emo. Watch for lots of fun in the new world on that one. We are really getting to the point now where we used to say Pixar didn't happen. By the way, you guys might have caught the news story from, I think it hit earlier this week, of I think it was an athletic director or a gym teacher at I'll say high school, basically tried to blackmail the principal, and had basically concocted a video, an audio tape, probably using a technology similar to either what Adobe has going on, or one of the many others, where you can basically text-to-speech it along with a sample of the speaker's voice and their phonemes, and it strings together essentially an audio tape of them not saying things. Basically he concocted one where he had said some racially charged stuff. It had never happened. It was a completely AI fake. There was just enough hinkiness in the generation of the audio tape that was presented that the police were able to drill further on it and say, this thing is actually a put-up job. And then he was not successful in taking out his intended victim. But going forward into these things, you're going to see not only that these things are thoroughly convincing from an audio level, but they're also going to be thoroughly convincing from the standpoint of the lip syncing and the video that goes along with it and so forth. So the whole idea of Pixar didn't happen is kind of going to go out the window a little bit. One thing that's pretty interesting also about I think the third of those clips I was playing, there's another one out there, which I don't think, let me see if I've got it in the deck here, if I can play it. Not sure if I do. Give me just a second. Come on, clip. Jog forward, will you? Can you? No, I'm sorry. I didn't have a chance to load that one up ahead of time. But a couple of the characters. So we're not really surprised that a guy in Joker makeup is artificial. But obviously the rendering of the Mona Lisa was AI entirely from the word go. There's nothing real about that. You might even say including the production of Miley Cyrus's original song. But if you look at EMO's the demo page, a couple of the characters they've got going on there are not even real people. So the original source person they used as the image that they then animate to do the lip sync on is something that they cooked up in Midjourney or one of the AI generators. There's apparently a story you can find about how they've now created a social media influencer where they'll post pictures of her at the gym and doing all sorts of influencer things. She's making apparently like $11K a month in endorsement deals and direct support. She doesn't exist. She's a complete AI fabrication, as are a number of explicitly AI girlfriends and so forth. Yeah, we're heading in for a very weird, strange world on any number of levels. Of course, this stuff will be applied to politics. Of course, this will be applied to a number of hinky schemes to get, doing one's enemies. But on the happy note of these things, and there is a happy note, we are very much getting into the realm of AI that really, if you're the writer, if you're the storyteller, and you want to create your own very interesting, very detailed sort of storyline, you don't need necessarily the multi-million-dollar sets. You don't necessarily need a bunch of actors. Although, by the way, there's also some really interesting technology out now that will mix in. If you were to get actors who look nothing like the people you eventually need, I mean, let's say you source it with local actors, from your theater that can just act, but when it actually comes to what you want it to appear like on screen, the physical appearances of the actors you're using, what it will do is you feed them a video clip of your own actors in motion and speaking lines and things like that. And then you basically come up with a look that you would like the actors to have had. Everything from like they are now noir characters, or they're of a completely different race and sex, or they're from a completely different era, or, the skinny guy really looks like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can get the end effect you want animating without motion capture suits, without any of that kind of stuff. It just analyzed the way that the actors were moving in the whole thing, and it will basically create them into another form, give you essentially your movie. It's really, really interesting. That is the current state of play with like real life out in the world commercial tools. There's a very interesting channel. It's basically called Filmmakers on AI. I'll get the actual link and I'll put it in the description. But of showing how he's basically creating his own documentary using these kinds of techniques. And it's absolutely fascinating. So if you are a storyteller, and let's assume that you're using your powers for good, you've never had more firepower in your hands to create really interesting things that would have, they either would have been beyond all imagining, or they would have required very big budgets and many, many people. And so suddenly the storyteller is really in control of being able to put those images together. So that part is pretty darn fantastic. And let's hope that more good comes out of it than bad. But let's also be real careful about believing what we see these days, because, man, it's going to be weird. All right. So that is about all I've got in terms of the main things I wanted to cover today. So we had a real long show last time out there. We'll have kind of a shorter one today, and we might not have a show next Wednesday. I will try to keep you guys posted on that one. Depends on when I get back from Florida. Like I say, I've been gunning pretty hard lately, and I need a couple days off. But anyway, one thing I did want to share with you guys. Bethesda Studios, as you might be able to tell from just looking around behind me, I'm a big fan of Fallout, which is a fantastic video game series set in the world where basically imagine the 1950s, all went into Fallout bunkers. They came out 200 years later into a wild, depopulated wasteland full of crazy Mad Max strangeness, but the culture of the 1950s had been preserved within them. So you've got this amazing mix of these very traditional 1950s values with just this out of control, crazy futuristic world. And done well, it's just amazing. It's anyway, I is my favorite video game series of all time. But they announced a number of years ago they were going to do a TV adaptation of it, which my reaction was the same as everyone else's in the comments section for the trailer, which is please don't suck, please don't suck, please don't suck, please don't suck, because it's too near and dear to my heart. I could not stand a really bad doing in of one of my favorite intellectual properties. It's kind of like the way we all felt before, when they decided that someone other than Lucas was going to do the new Star Wars film. So anyway, that's kind of how I felt about the whole thing. The people that they put in charge of it are Jonathan Nolan, which is Christopher Nolan's brother, and Lisa Joy, his partner. And they were the folks who brought us Westworld with everything that is good and bad of that. because the first series of Westworld was fantastic, absolutely can't miss TV, and that it just kind of fell off a damn cliff. Anyway, so they got put in charge with clearly with a huge budget, and they came with a Fallout TV series on Amazon Prime. They dropped all 8 episodes of it at once, which is typically a bad sign. A couple weeks ago, I finally got a chance to watch through the entire thing, and I'm gonna say, from a set design point of view, if nothing else, absolutely fantastic, absolutely nailed it. The tone, I'm going to say, is quite a bit cruder than the game was, and if I were to describe the story to you, it would not leave you sitting there saying, wow, that is the most compelling story I've ever seen. That said, hugely entertaining TV. They did not completely screw it up. They kept the social virtue signaling to an acceptable. I mean, yeah. Did they have a gratuitous trans character in there? You're damn right they did. Did they have a very unrealistic representation of minorities in 1950s America? Absolutely. It's probably made about as well as a modern Hollywood production can be made. However, in that they didn't shove that stuff down your throat night and day. And so with a few caveats in place, I'm going to say I really enjoyed it. So with that said, I'm going to X out here. We're going to play part of the trailer, and then we're going to call it a day. So you guys have a good one, and I'll see you on the other one. Whoops. We're going to call it a day if I can. Oh, I think I froze up my stream deck. Excuse me just a moment. Hello and welcome to the reboot of the video deck. Let's try this one more time. Oh man, nope, it done froze on me. All right, we're gonna try to hit it manually, and if that doesn't happen, I'm just gonna send you out to the video and tell you to watch it your darn self. All right, so let's go here and pull up the ATEM control. Let's cue the clip. I have to go to switcher and then media and then hyperdeck. Come on, hyperdeck, come to me. Frustrating in the extreme, guys. Can't tell you. All right, well, that's about it. Have a good one. I will see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.